Alright, YouTube, I'm back on video. I'm sure that there are people who will be thrilled about that fact. New microphone, working fine. As you can see, I don't need to hold it. I can have my hands completely free, which is a little bit liberating for me, let's face it. But let's get right into the meat and bones because, nobody wants to fucking hear about that bullshit forever. I mean, it's the same type of webcam. It's a C920. I stuck with one that works for me. It's time to cover the Vermont gubernatorial election. Now, originally, I was looking around at the candidates, sort of what they believe in and so forth, who's on the list, what parties are they from, and so far as it goes. I'm like, well, at this point, I guess I'm kind of the second most well-known Vermonter online, other than Bernie Sanders himself at this point. I'm looking at like Peter Shumlin and stuff like that. Nobody gives a fuck about Peter Shumlin. Nobody gives a fuck about Phil Scott. Yeah, there are people that are supporting him. A lot of them are just partisans anyway. So I figured, I might as well endorse somebody in the race. But then I went through and I studied a little bit more about all of these people. And I finally decided not to endorse any of them because they all suck. Phil Scott, Republican, is nothing more than a shill for Shumlin, who has been a disaster for this state. He's not even a fucking Vermonter, isn't he? I think he's a New Yorker or something like that. I wouldn't support Phil Scott. And then there's Listman. Listman is sort of casting himself as the Republican opposition to Phil Scott. That is sort of the figure of, well, I can do this better. He was just a shill for Shumlin, which is true. Then he's like, oh yeah, retired Wall Street executive. That's what this state needs. That's what a state like Vermont needs. We need more Wall Street in our state. I don't fucking think so. One of the Democrats is like a Google executive, so that goes out the window. One of them, I think her name was Chris. I think it was Chris Erickson. Was actually part of the marijuana party some time ago. Now a Democrat. And I thought, well, the fact that sounds better at this point than sort of the mainline candidates is kind of laughable. Then I was thinking of former Red Sox member Bill Lee. And I was thinking, well, he's like a total maverick. He's kind of out there. That's the sort of person I tend to like. So I'm like, well, maybe I'll study up on him, even though, he's a real outsider. I think he's Liberty Union. And then I look and he's like, oh yeah, I'm a socialist. Our state has enough socialism. That's one of our problems. Our former Secretary of Transportation's on the list. I think that was Minter, although I may be wrong. It's like, yeah, the Vermont Department of Transportation, how well loved and well received. Our roads are just so fucking perfect. And they really completed that Amtrak connection between Burlington and Rutland in a timely manner. Nothing ever goes over budget. Nothing is ever stymied. It's not like the road crews do work at rush hour instead of waiting until they're supposed to. Look at the problems here we have, like in Rutland. Our street lights constantly go on and off randomly. They skip a turn randomly. Nobody's crossing. Nobody's pressed the button. There are no emergency vehicles around. The train's not crossing. And yet the street lights, suddenly, they skip 3 or 4 different turns. Traffic backs up for half a mile. Our roads are largely dilapidated, and when they do maintain them, they do it at the worst possible time of day, when people are either on their way to work or coming home from work. They talk about this pedestrian mall that they want to build here in Vegas. I'm sure that will go over really well. You talk to some of these business owners, they'll say some of them are in favor of it. Others are like, oh, no, where the fuck are people going to park? Nobody's going to. This isn't Burlington. We're not right next to UVM. We're not right down the street from UVM. We don't have a metro population of 125,000 people. We've got 55,000 people in the whole damn county. It's just not going to work here. We're like small town farming community compared to Burlington. It's sort of like the hippie, the joint smoking part of the state. It's not going to work for us. Now, Rutland's been left behind by our state politics. They're so invested in Montpelier and Burlington that nobody cares about anything else that's going on in the state. Some private corporation, if they can actually get their foot in the door in a place like Woodstock, it's never going to happen. Northeast Kingdom got a little bit better a situation going on, I guess. They come in and they develop something, and then finally people stop using dial-up in 2008 in the Northeast Kingdom, or they develop something else. Our state is a bureaucratic mess. This is one of the reasons that I didn't support Bernie Sanders in the primaries. Is one of the reasons I know. Yeah, he's from Vermont. Okay, that's fine. Lived here most of his life. Okay, that's fine. Mayor of Burlington, fine. Senator, fine. Representative, okay, that's all great. I had no problem with that. But exporting our economic woes to other states sounds like a bad idea. We can't all be like Vermont. Now, I like the quirkiness of Vermont. I like the fact that we're like the Switzerland of the United States. Yeah, so we're well educated and we pay through the nose for our education system and so forth. It's very clean and we pay through the nose for that. It's very friendly towards families because we've kept any corporations from coming in outside of like the Vegas Strip or something like that. That's great. I don't think that any of these jokers know what they're doing. I don't trust any of them to lead this state. I look around at these people. The Bill Lee, socialist, okay. Minter, Secretary of Transportation. Oh, that's great. Transportation, the one thing Vermont is always renowned for. Our roads are just so perfect. Then we've got somebody who is a Wall Street exec. Then we got a Google executive. And then we've got somebody who was in the marijuana party. The fact that that's probably the most viable candidate, Chris Erickson, that we have, is pretty damn sad. Now, Vermont has a right to be quirky. But this is not the sort... There's no libertarian candidate for me to vote for either. That's another problem. I mean, even Listman, who sounds common sense, I don't like Wall Street executives. I don't want them running our state. I don't want some billionaire banker or someone like... Oh, why do you think Rich Tarrant lost when he ran against Bernie Sanders? Nobody wants somebody who's made millions in corporatism running a state like Vermont. It's just not going to work. And anyway, whoever gets elected, unless they're real far left on everything except guns, the one thing our state has held to the right on, they're never going to get the cooperation of the legislature anyway. They're still going to be stacked with the Democratic supermajority. So what's the fucking point of voting for like Listman or Phil Scott? They're not going to do anything anyway. It'll be like years ago when what's his name was governor and he was a Republican. What did he do? He did nothing. He just sat there and said, "Oh, I'm the next Calvin Coolidge. We're just going to be cool. We're going to be calm. We're going to be relaxed. It's Vermont. Smoke some weed. Nobody gives a fuck." You know, none of these candidates really appealed to me. I wanted to endorse somebody and talk about, well, you know, they're better than the rest. I don't know. I don't think any of them are, honestly. I think I'll probably just vote for Mickey Mouse for governor, honestly. It's really sad because we have Milnes, whichever you pronounce it, he was okay. Even Peter Shumlin early on seemed like an okay character. Then, of course, he went full retard, which is exactly what he is. He's retiring in shame, barely being reelected. I think it was by 800 votes or some insane total like that. I didn't vote, by the way, for anybody for governor that time. Not that, I mean, it was still 1,000 votes, so it wouldn't have tipped the balance or anything. But I thought it was funny anyway. No, I can't endorse any of these fucking losers. Because none of them deserve to be elected to that post. Our state deserves better than some idiot like Phil Scott. Or some presumably corrupt millionaire like Listman. Or some idiot like Dunn or Erickson or Minter or Bill Lee. They're all idiots. Why would you vote for any of these people? Vote for Mickey Mouse. Vote for Ethan Allen or something like that. It makes a lot more sense. That's about all. Peace out.